What if I told you that charging 30% more than your competitors while having customers thank you for the privilege isn't just possible, it's systematic, and there's a proven framework that helped my client, Jonathan Scarfe, from $500,000, it was actually about $530K, to $6 million in revenue by positioning himself and the business as the expensive option customers aspire to hire. I know this kind of sounds crazy, right? Now, I'm Psaila from UpCoach, and that transformation happened because Jonathan stopped competing on price and actually started dominating on authority instead. They became the industry experts. Pretty crazy how this changed around, right? Most business owners position themselves as affordable or competitive and wonder why they attract price shoppers who do what? They actually negotiate everything and usually refer you've heard it, they're actually cheapskates, right? Meanwhile, what? Premium providers in the exact same marketplace, in the exact industry, charge whatever they want and have a waiting list. Have you noticed that? You go to a restaurant, high-end restaurants are packed all the time, a little shitty restaurant, hardly ever packed. Now, in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to walk you through this complete premium positioning play, right? That literally transformed Jonathan from a price competing service provider into a premium choice, right? Where serious customers connected with him and they were happy to pay because they knew they were going to get good product. And by the end of the episode, you're going to have the exact 4-layer positioning system, the qualification scripts that filter out bargain hunters, and the authority demonstration protocol that makes customers expect to pay premium prices. They know it's going to be expensive, or not really expensive. They see value and they want to pay you that because they know what they're about to get. Have you ever noticed people are happy to pay for quality? Now, let me tell you about Jonathan, right? He had a breaking point moment, right? Because it's the plateau that kills most businesses. Jonathan owned a successful business, right? They were doing about $500K annually, decent margins, good reputation, steady clients, but he was stuck, right? Every time he tried to go, he hit the same wall, that price resistance. I said, you know what? It's time for us to change that around, right? You know, he'd quote a job, maybe it's a $5,000 job. Customers would say, oh, you know, that's really expensive. You know, others can do it cheaper. So Jonathan would either do what? You know, drop his price to win the work or lose the project to cheaper competitors. And that's even worse because that's kind of a race to the bottom, right? And then, you know, he started to realize he was trapped in this commodity game. You know, he was competing against every, you know, person that actually did the same type of work, right? They were actually in retaining walls, right? And, you know, everybody was the expert. And the only differentiation was price. Right? He then said, hey, Nick, you know, we're good at what we do. And I could understand that. He goes, but, you know, I can't seem to break through to the next level. I'm always having to justify my prices instead of demonstrating kind of the value that we offer, our expertise, what we do, our customer service. He goes, I feel like I'm in this race to the bottom. Now, you're probably shaking your head because this could maybe be you, right? So here's what actually Jonathan didn't understand, and what most business owners actually miss, right? You don't have a pricing problem, you've got a positioning problem. Ferrari doesn't have a pricing problem, they've got a positioning problem. Mac doesn't have a pricing problem, right? They don't have a they don't have a pricing problem, they've got a positioning problem. And they don't have the problem, why? Because they're up the top, so people expect to buy that. Do you see what I mean? Like, so it's not the pricing. There's people for everyone. There's still no lack of people buying Ferraris. There's no lack of people buying Apple. There's no lack of people buying high-end products, right? There's still people doing that, right? High-end, you know, homes or pools, cars, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. So then Jonathan actually had a bit of an aha moment, right? Because premium position actually isn't about being expensive. It's about being valuable in a way that makes the price irrelevant. Isn't that interesting? Just let that sink in for a second. I said, hey, Jonathan, what if every piece of communication trained the customer to expect this premium pricing instead of hoping for discounts? Everything that we connected, whether it was marketing, sales, where we, you know, working through them, meeting with them. And the breakthrough then came when he's actually been positioning himself as, you know, one of many options instead of the obvious choice, right? There's a distinct change there, right? His marketing said, hey, we're affordable. That's how it was, when we should have actually said, we actually get exceptional results, right? So what I did then is I introduced him to premium positioning play. This is really important. It's one of my frameworks. And it's 4 systematic layers that transform how customers perceive you before they even meet you. This is really important. The goal actually isn't to trick the customer into paying more. It's to attract customers who value quality over cheap prices and position yourself as the expert that they want to hire. See, there's an interesting distinction there, right? You don't want to attract cheap people. You want to attract the right people that understand that they're happy to pay for value. Now, there's 4 layers, so let's have a look at this. Layer 1 is marketing position. So we needed to overhaul that. Jonathan's old tagline, right, is, affordable walls, right? Affordable retaining walls. The new one is actually, right, the retaining wall specialist that other people recommend, that builders recommend. You see, there's a totally different sort of construct there, right? Shift in the way that we market. Every piece of marketing changed. Competitive prices actually became, premium results for serious clients only. Quality work at fair prices became expensive but worth it. This free quotes actually became, hey, let's go an exclusive session where we sit down with you and map everything out, right? The psychology here, instead of competing for everybody's attention, you're positioning for people who value expertise over bargains, right? Now, by the way, the $2 shops exist. The bargain people exist. However, if that's not what you're in, you need to change the way that you do things. Now, layer 2 was, how do we connect? Most business owners try to convert every inquiry. Premium positioning means you qualify your customers before investing time and energy in them. Jonathan's new qualifier sounded something like this. Before we book in to come and see you on site, I should mention that, typically, there's a pretty good investment. Usually we start at X amount, right? We work with, clients just like you who understand that, good investments are important and good quality is really important. Does this align with your expectation, right? Now, if they hesitated, they said no, well, that's awesome. We just got them out the way, or we recommended some cheaper alternatives, right? If budget was a primary concern. Now, here's the psychology around that. See, if you pre-qualify, budget expectations, it already positions you as a premium choice. It creates scarcity psychology and it saves time, right, in unsuitable, situations. You don't want to work with people who aren't cool. Now, here's what's cool about it. The prospects are past that, right, converted at 73% versus trying to do everything else and it was 15 or 16%, right? See, there's a difference, save you time and money. Now, there's authority, that's positioning number 3. Now, with authority, here's what's cool, right? If you've got, really good presentations at each touch point, professional standards, right? The look of, feel of the website, how we show up on their site, how we follow up with their emails, right? How we leave samples with them, how we're able to connect with them, the portfolio that we showed them, the success stories that we had with our clients, how we've won industry recognition, the awards, right? Our professional credentials, written testimonials and Google reviews, video reviews, the guarantee that came with it. See, the language doesn't say what? It doesn't say anything about cost. It actually says everything about investment. It doesn't say cheap, it says value, right? And we don't have to say, we don't have to pitch to people. Now they understand that this is a part of the process and how we do it. Now, the final layer is around communication. How you communicate determines what? How customers perceive your value. Right? I can do it cheaper. That's how you communicate. Premium says something different. Let me show you what goes on into creating, this amazing product for you, right? We take pride in our work. And, sometimes you have stuff like, on site, when you go and see people, we're negotiable on price. Well, actually what we do is we say kind of the investment reflects the level of results that we can deliver. We want to make sure that we're really high with these results, right? Do you see what I mean? So it's important that you communicate. Why? Because, you don't want to position your business as El Cheapo. Now, if you're a $2 shop, go El Cheapo. Funny enough, you walk in a $2 shop and I don't know much, in there that's $2 anymore, right? It's just a way of attracting that particular type of audience. See what I mean? So what was cool about this is once he understood this, once we made that shift psychologically, Jonathan started to discover that, he transformed the entire business model around, right? Positioning, right, in the premium market actually was really amazing because customers already knew that they were going to pay a premium, but guess what? They actually treated him like a premium provider. Think about it. Designers, developers, builders, whatever it may be that you're in, whatever industry that you're in, there's always the premium guys or girls, and they're charging a hell of a lot more than maybe what you are, right? When they treat you like a premium provider, guess what? You then deliver premium results because it's win-win all the way around. And when you deliver results, guess what? They refer more people to you because birds of a feather flock together. That's what's cool about this. Remember, he went from 500 grand to 6 million. It wasn't about working hard. It was about attracting these clients, right, that lifted the value, right, instead of these, quick, cheap and nasty type things that everyone just complains all the time, right? Do you see what I mean? It's a total shift. And that's what's even better, right? His average client now values his work. Funny enough, they increased by over 200%, right? Because now we weren't dealing with, the people that were all budget conscious. We're dealing with people that really loved our work, right? And that's what's cool. Guess what he learned? He learned that positioning, right, actually protects the business because there's always that top echelon of clients that people want to work with and they've got the money to do it. When budgets get tight, cheap providers do what? They actually cut first. Premium providers do what? They deliver results and they actually become more valuable.